Welcome to the Focal Insights Podcast Founder Hour edition, hosted by co-founder Joe Pollock. Joe has been in the e-commerce industry for over 25 years. He grew and bootstrapped his own startup to a successful exit. Founder Hour episodes go behind the scenes to learn how some of the best e-commerce brands were founded, grown, and operated straight from the founders themselves. Founder Hour is brought to you by Focal Software, a new generation ERP and operation suite for e-commerce brands and third-party marketplace sellers. Focal was built with SMB brands and marketplace sellers in mind to help them grow profitably. Now let's welcome our host, Joe Pollock.
Hello and welcome to the Focal E-commerce Insights Podcast, where we chat with e-commerce entrepreneurs about business, selling online, and how to overcome challenges for success. Today we have a very exciting guest, but before we get started, for listeners not familiar with the podcast or Focal Software is an e-commerce operations software and marketplace account management company. So if you need products or services to help grow your business profitably, be sure to stay tuned to future podcasts or feel free to reach out. Joining us today is Bryan Weisberg, who is the founder and CEO of Thousand Oaks Barrel Company, a company that sells whiskey making kits, accessories, and gifts, and is the leading provider of barrels used in the accelerated aging process for distilling spirits. Bryan attended the University of Houston. He founded the Thousand Oaks Barrel Company in 1999 and is now the world's largest supplier of custom barrels. The company essentially invented the mini barrel market, introduced accelerated aging, and created the glass top cocktail smoker, which has become very popular with restaurants offering handcrafted drinks. The company is now selling in multiple channels, including online marketplaces, retail, wholesale, catalogs, distilleries, and wineries. He also founded multiple international e-commerce brands, was previously a CBS recording artist with 3 top 100 songs on the college radio and dance charts in the 80s, has previous corporate experience in several roles, and currently lives and works in Manassas, Virginia. Bryan, welcome to the podcast.
How you doing?
Great. Well, we always start this podcast with the story, the backstory of how you got into business, what motivated you to do it, because it's not an easy road to start a company, and there's always challenges. And I always love to hear the stories. And when we talk about being a recording artist in the past for CBS, and then getting into barrels for accelerated aging, that sounds like you've got quite a story. So why don't you just tell us how you got to where you are?
So, yes, I started off as a recording artist, and had my first record as a junior in high school. And by the time I was 19, I had a deal with CBS, had a couple records on CBS. And by the time I was 22, I was a has-been and thrown out to pasture over the hill at 22 years old. So the drummer in my band and we decided to ship our motorcycles to Europe and spend a few months riding around Europe. And I met a guy who was also riding around Europe, a bit older than us, and he invited us to stay at his place when we were in the area. So he was living in the south of France, and in his house, he had a 5-gallon barrel in his living room, and you walk up to a winery, and he'd get a plastic jug of wine, put it in the barrel, and here I am at 22, 23 years old, drinking wine out of a barrel in France. And I thought that was really cool. So fast forward about 10 years, and I'm living in Los Angeles, and my father brings a barrel, a 1-gallon barrel, and a plastic jug of tequila, and he says, do you know what to do with it? I said, of course I know what to do with it. Where'd you get this? He said, well, I met a guy who was making these, and I thought you'd like this. I said, well, let's go find this guy. So we track him down in middle of Mexico somewhere, and I said, hey, I'd like to buy your company. He said, Senor, it's just me and my son. So I said, well, we're going into business, and you're going to start making barrels for me, and I will buy and sell every single barrel you could possibly make. So fast forward about 25 years, and and now we make about 100,000 barrels a year, and we sell them all over the world. And we have probably every major distillery in the U.S. is a customer at some level of ours, and I'd say about 75% of the craft distilleries are customers of ours, and life is good.
Yeah, you see these barrels everywhere at a lot of bars and restaurants, and you put their logo on them, and those are mostly yours, it sounds like.
Yeah, so what makes us different from any other small barrel? There's only a couple people who are making small barrels. What we do is we buy what's called the shortcuts of wood from the major stave mills. So when you're making a stave for Jack Daniels or Maker's Mark or Beam or whomever, I start off with a 40-inch piece of wood, and it air dries outside for about 18 to 24 months. And when the at the end of that 24 months, if the edges of that piece of wood has split more than an inch or so, they can't use that piece of wood for the barrel. So that's what they cut that off, and it becomes what's called a shortcut. So we buy all of the same quality wood as the major distilleries, just the ones that they can't use for their barrels, and we make small barrels out of them. And so when a distillery wants a small barrel or start a small barrel program for aging their spirits, they always come to us because we are the only people who have new wood, first quality wood barrels out there. Any of our competitors are basically um, buying old whiskey barrels, breaking them down and making using the staves to make small barrels. So because of that, a distillery does not want to have their new product inside of a barrel that is going to take flavors from some other spirit, and so we we dominate the market because we're the only people who make a small new wood product.
Okay, and when you take a product to market, you see there's a need for it, right? Or you believe there's a need for it. So going back to your story with, I think you said it was your uncle. So
My
he's
father,
got
yep.
a small barrel and some tequila, and so this is something that large distilleries have been doing forever, right? And but you're saying there's a need for uh maybe hobbyists or smaller distilleries to use smaller barrels, and is that where the need was in your
Well,
mind?
so so in 1999, the going belief was that you needed to age spirits in a 52, 53 gallon barrel. Okay. Um, and that it didn't age any faster if you were in a small barrel. So for the sake of it being commercially viable, the idea of a small barrel was nothing. However, there were many people over the years who did a lot of research to show that a smaller the barrel, the faster it would age. Now, the word aging is an interesting word because aging with regard to spirits is a combination of two things. It's a combination of the barrel imparting flavor into your spirits and time that allows your spirits to rest. You can't speed up time. I wish I could, but I can't do that. But what I can do is accelerate the amount of flavor that you're going to get from the wood into your spirits by having a small barrel. Um, and doing any number of other things, sonic aging, aging in water, motion, heating and cooling the barrel. There's all these different things you can do to simulate time um, and and uh, and get more flavor faster. So around 2010, the Craft Distilling Institute hired some people to do some research as to whether or not a small barrel was going to age faster. And at that convention, we were actually in the room with a display uh, of our product. And the ultimate result was that yes, a smaller barrel was going to age your spirits faster. You're going to get way more flavor in a short amount of time due to the surface to spirit ratio inside a small barrel. And at that point, the craft distilling industry uh, just went to small barrel aging, and small craft aging. So if you're a young distillery, it's going to take you up to 2 to 5 years to once you get your license from the TTB, it takes 2 to 5 years to get your spirit made and then aged. And so you've got to wait 5 years before you can start selling your spirit. So what a lot of companies did is they created a they sold an unaged product, your unaged whiskey, a white dog, with a barrel. And the person went home and aged their spirit in themselves in the barrel. And that way they could start moving their spirit immediately rather than waiting 5 years. So from a business perspective, the idea of making a product and then sitting on it for 5 years, that's a pretty tough pill to swallow. So um, uh, the going back to 2010, the market just exploded, and you started having a lot of, most distilleries as part of their marketing program will buy barrels to give to the restaurants and bars throughout the country, so that they get premium space on the bar, and then the bartenders interact with their product by making that special barrel aged cocktail or a barrel aged smoked cocktail, utilizing the barrel and or our cocktail smokers.
All right. So then at that point, sounds like you were in business for about 10 years before it kind of exploded. But in the early days, what did you find out getting ready and going to market? So you had somebody to make the barrels and get them to you. Let's talk about the challenges you had just going to market and getting your product out there and getting sales.
All right, so uh, I have a good story for you. So in the very early days, um, I got this product, and I started selling the barrels initially on eBay, and I would auction them off, and everything was selling and at a good price. And so this is going back to, I want to say, 2001, 2002.
When eBay was
And
very hot at that time. It was an early
it, it,
marketplace and people were loving it.
exactly. And at that, in those days, Amazon was only selling their products.
Yeah.
So there was
And
no
books.
Amazon really. So
Books.
eBay was the big fish at the time.
Yeah.
And um, as marketing, I started going onto the different spirit message boards and posting stuff about my barrels. So I went onto this one board. I don't even remember what it was called anymore, and I posted the barrels, and I just got bombasted by, blasted by all these people on the board that you can't age spirits at home. It's ridiculous. This is absolute nonsense. And I just shrunk to nothing. I thought, oh my gosh, my business is over, and uh,
The
the
experts,
word's going to get out that I'm a fraud and whatever.
the experts had
However,
spoken.
what's that?
The experts had spoken.
Exactly. And so, um, I didn't quite know what to do at that point, and so I just kept doing what I was doing, and I just said, okay, well, I'm not going to post on these message boards anymore. And at the same time, more and more people were buying our product, and more people were posting on message boards how much they loved to age their own spirits. So you had this kind of uh, diametrically opposed situation where here you got one group of people who are saying this doesn't work, and you got this other group of people who are saying this is the best thing in the world. So from about 2002, 2003 till about 2010, there was a lot of that going on where some people were just buying into the program and some didn't. And it wasn't until 2010 when the Distilling Institute published the article on small barrel aging, when all of a sudden the entire thing changed. And then anybody who was a naysayer, you could easily go back to them and say, here, well, you should probably read this article and get your facts straight. And within no time, all of a sudden, the market changed and was built.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great example of a challenge or a headwind that you came up against where, these guys are the experts. They're saying you don't have a viable product, and then you knew it, you believed in it, and then sure enough, you were validated some years later by the experts above the experts refuting them.
And that's exactly right. And I think when you really get down to most businesses that are building a market for their product, everybody runs into a challenge very similar to that. The market's not ready, and some people are just going to poo-poo on anything that's new, and some people are going to be early adopters, try it out, and if it works for them, they're going to be the voice of your product. And so, I believed in it. I had done a lot of research and found lots of cool information about the accelerated aging in different, uh, in articles dating back over 100 years. And I just, I knew that this was going to work, and I just needed to find the right medium uh, to okay it and make it be a product that the average person could enjoy.
Yeah, and I think it's often referred to as a product that's a disruptor. So it really didn't exist. The product didn't exist and the market didn't exist, and you brought it, and you're gonna have to expect that kind of pushback. Did you expect it, or was it more or less, or were you just ready to weather any storm?
So I did not expect it, and I thought that everybody was going to think like I did, which is, oh, this is the coolest thing ever, and they were just going to think that and buy into it. I had no idea that there were going to be uh, naysayers and people who were, so anti what I was doing. Yeah, I had no idea of that.
Yeah, I wonder what the motivation was. Typically, they're threatened in some way, but I don't know who these experts were or what market share you were potentially going to take away from them. But do you have a good feeling for what their motivation was, or they're just very?
So
I know in this industry there are purists, right?
so most of them were people who were, they're message boards where you know, this whiskey is better than that whiskey, and you
Yeah.
want the best tequila. This is the best tequila, and when you have you know, I think it's kind of like art, and whiskey is art. There's no such thing as the best band. There's no such thing as the best movie, right? There's the product the thing that you like the most that you connect with, and there's the things that you don't connect with. But to say that the Rolling Stones are better than the Beatles, it's ridiculous because they're both great, and sometimes you just really feel like putting a Beatles song on, and sometimes you feel like putting the Stones on. So uh, I think that there are some people who just put that jersey on for their team, and they know better than anybody else, and everything else sucks.
Right. Yeah. There is no best really of anything. There are a lot of good ones, and then it's your decision personally what's the best for you.
And it's interesting because I talk to people who friends of mine from back in the days, my music days, and I have this concept that relates to this, which is that there's really no such thing as a music industry, right? Um, you would never say that there's an art industry. There's just art. You buy art and sell art, right? But there's
Yeah.
no industry that sells art. The the definition of an industry is when you have three different companies who are solving the same problem slightly differently and vying for the same customer. In music, or in whiskey, or in any type of product, really. Uh, well, I'll just say specifically in music. In music, you can like the Stones and you can like the Beatles, and yet at the same time, The Cure comes out with a new record, you're going to buy The Cure. It's art, and therefore there really isn't an industry, and um, you're not fighting when you release a new record or you release a new spirit. You're not fighting for the same customer as somebody else. You're fighting to have somebody who likes you, who also is going to like somebody else. And so when you understand that that's your market, then you go after your market in a different manner than if you're trying to solve a problem that's a little bit more specific, i.e., in software, you decide, you pick, oh, I'm going to use this type of software for my company versus that, and you're only going to buy one. You're not going to buy two or three or four of them, and so you pick the software that's going to work best for you, and it may or may not be the best software, but it's going to be the best product for you for what your needs are.
Yeah, and what you described there, it's almost more of a collector's market, like with music. It used to be we would collect
Yes.
albums and you didn't consume them and you didn't sell them, you just kept them. And
Yep.
I think spirits are similar in some ways, that people have a large collection of whiskeys. Um, but that's consumable as well, so you have a continuous market there. So it's an interesting concept. Okay, so you're up and running, you're in business, and you've had some headwinds from some experts in the market. You're growing though, you're growing quickly, so you may have some operational challenges. What did you come across for just growing the business, needing maybe employees or needing technology solutions to keep everything under control?
All right. So my first big obstacle was I get a call from a very large catalog company around 2008, and they want to sell our barrels in their catalog. Now, uh, people today, most of them don't remember old catalog companies, but uh, this was a company called Wine Enthusiast. They're actually still around, and they reached out to us and said, "Hey, we want to sell, or we want to put your barrels in our catalog and sell them online, and kind of have you do some custom barrels for us." So we said to them, "Well, how many do you think you're going to sell at Christmas?" And they gave us a number, and we prepared for Christmas, um, uh, hitting that number, and in addition to what we were selling on the other channels that we were selling for. And we had, multiplied that and gave a multiple of probably an extra 30% product. Well, they launched the product for Christmas, and their estimation was probably uh, it was so off that we needed to make three or four times what they had ordered, and so we just had to go into uh, we had to hire a bunch of people to start making product and training them, and we were literally working around the clock. And luckily at the time, um, I was right next to us was the building next to us, where our factory is, was the work release building for the prison. And there's about 60 people who are in jail who they come out during the day to work, and then they go back at night. And so I was able to pull people out for 12 hours a day, have them work for 6 days a week, and you have to pay them obviously, but um, I had this great labor pool that was right next door, and they weren't drunk. They weren't, no debauchery was going on because they were getting checked when they went back in. So we used all these guys to help us get through that obstacle the first year. And then about 6, 9 months later, we had we launched another product, a personalized barrel head, and um, uh, the same company picked that product up and put it in their catalog for Christmas, and the same exact thing happened. It just took off like wildfire. And again, we ramped up our staff from the work release to get through that Christmas. And then about another year or two later, we had, which is I like to think of as the mother of all tidal waves, that 100-foot wave, where we were working with a another catalog company, um, and they put our whiskey making kit into the catalog, and they gave us let's just say they thought that they were going to sell 5,000 of them for Christmas, and they ended up selling about I don't know 8 to 10,000 of them, uh, and we again had to um, really ramp up our staff. But that year we ran into a very interesting obstacle, and it's something that I think that most companies don't ever think about in solving. Uh, we had to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 boxes to 3,000 customers before Christmas. And we were running really late. And so we were able to put all the product together, but we were at the cutoff time. That was about 3 days before Christmas. And so we had to get, 3,000 boxes uh, to people without having to pay your expedited shipping cost. So I called up my UPS rep, and he came down, and he stayed till from about then 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon till easily past midnight, and he divided all the boxes um, into different groups, and he basically said, okay, this group needs to be driven overnight to Minnesota. This group needs to go to Atlanta. This one needs to go, and he basically had us drive boxes of product, or drive all this product to these different locations where we were one day away from uh, uh, delivery. And he literally saved us about $50,000 to $60,000 in excess charges by just helping us figure out how to get them and get them where, and tell them where to be. And he even called up um, the different places we were going to drop them off and let them know, okay, you've got 200 boxes coming over here, you got the 600 boxes coming over here. And they literally went and got they got units to basically take all that product, get it into the truck, and get it out. And sure enough, every single package got there before Christmas. And if you want to think about a crazy obstacle to being successful in business, I think that was one of our craziest Christmases.
Yeah,
And
that does sound pretty crazy, and it's really an amazing customer service story on UPS as well, which you could talk about that for a
I,
long time, just that one experience.
the when you have a company and uh, you've got somebody working for you who is that committed to making sure the company succeeds, to making sure UPS succeeds as well as us. Um, there's not a lot of people out there. This guy was an exceptional employee, and um, obviously after that summer, we became very close. As him being our rep, and he was our rep for another 4 or 5 years before he retired. But um, yeah, you don't get a lot of people with that kind of dedication.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so those experiences that you had, we've focused so far on the fulfilling orders and kind of a manufacturing and fulfilling concept there. But as you're growing and these orders are coming in, because it wasn't just wine enthusiasts, you had other channels already. So you've got all these orders. How did you keep it organized? And you've got seasonal people or temp employees coming in and out that you have to pay. So you've got massive organizational challenges as well. How did that go?
Right. Um, so good question. Uh, so because we live in multiple markets. We're in the promotional product market. We are in the catalog uh, market. We are in the retail market. We sell to companies like Dillard's and Williams Sonoma and uh, Sur La Table. We're on Amazon. We're on uh, Fair, on all these different platforms. So our problems from a technical standpoint have historically been that we have all these different products going to different places. Um, Orders are coming in from many different ways. In some cases, we actually go log into their systems and we download the orders, and the order never goes into our system. We just produce it and we manage the relationship with those customers through their systems. Um, in some cases, it's in our system if it's in our website. Uh, we utilize some of the uh, um, we couldn't get we tried to build a system ourselves that could normalize all the order entry coming in from all these different places. However, uh, everything was so different from each one that there was just no way to normalize it. So what we did is we set up um, little pods where certain groups of people who send their orders in different ways, they go to a different pod. So we have a pod that basically just takes email orders. We have pods where we're downloading orders from other people's systems. We have a group that handles just Amazon. We have a group that handles just our website. And so we kind of have people who are experts in the different areas who take all the orders in, normalize that order because what what one company might like, whatever that product might be called on Amazon, we wouldn't use that term internally here or that SKU necessarily here. And so we then have to normalize the what that product is, and we literally do everything with paper. So we have all these different racks where like products are. So 3 liter barrels with black hoops. We have a rack where all of those products are. We have bootleg kits. We have signs. We have quarter barrels. Whatever the product is, smokers. And so the different people who are taking the orders basically put them in these different racks, and then uh, we have people come grab those orders during the day, all the like ones, and collect it, package it up, and send it off. And for the personalized orders, because at Christmas we can do as much as about 1,500 personalized items a day. What we started doing is we started getting overseas artists. We had originally hired a bunch of artists here in our shop, but the problem was that we were not utilizing time very well. Um, so uh, at the end of our day, which could be 7 or 8 o'clock at night, um, everybody goes home and there's no work getting done from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So we went overseas. We got artists we would download all the art at the end of the day to a server. They would grab the art in their morning. They'd work all day to produce the art and put it in templates. And then when our people come in the morning, all the templates are made and we can then print the art and get it out the door. So we've been able to do personalized gifts with literally a 24-hour turnaround by building these internal systems. And so there's not a whole lot of automated stuff to produce all of the orders because it's just too difficult. And in fact, in the heyday with UPS, they gave us an enormous amount of money and a lot of resources to help build out a system to do all of that. And um, the people that we had working on they just couldn't get it to work because everything was so different, and we had so many moving pieces, new products with different people all the time that it was just too hard it's going to be too hard, too costly to normalize. So we just kind of said, okay, well, we're just going to do this on paper and make it work.
Yeah, so you've got your own system that's unfortunately a lot of manual work that involves a lot of people, but you haven't found any way to solve that. And that is really the biggest challenge in software when you talk about distribution and managing orders. And you call it normalizing, I call it mapping. So if you've got product coming from Amazon and it's called one thing, but you internally call it something else, the software has to recognize that and map it. And then, like you said, normalize everything else. It's just a widget and a number internally. That is a huge challenge. But why don't we switch gears a little bit now to e-commerce, because we're an e-commerce company and talk about, a lot about that. You were an early e-commerce person with eBay. What other channels are you using or found super useful in the e-commerce space? And are there any tools that you use there to help at least get it to the point where you can, your systems kick in?
And so, so I started with e-commerce in the very early 1990s, when it was nowhere near as sophisticated and there were not a whole lot of systems. And and so really around the late 90s, 98, 99, when e-commerce really started to play is when things really started kind of getting interesting. So for us, right now we do a pretty considerable business on Amazon, and so we utilize all the Jungle Scouts and all the software that to help you uh, gather data, analyze the data, and optimize your listings. Um, uh, we do we gather a lot of information, we analyze the information here, and then we extrapolate some of that information for running ads on Google and Yahoo and some of the other platforms. um, and it's interesting because the Amazon customer can be very much similar but very different on different platforms. And so you could use certain keywords to get in front of people on Amazon, but it doesn't work on Google. Google, you need a different set of keywords or phrases. So we do use a lot of technology for that. Um, there's if we do a lot of business on Fair, and um, Fair has its own internal engines to for advertising and all, and it's still fairly primitive, but um, it's I find Fair to be really interesting because um, if you're a business and you have a certain type of customer and you buy certain types of products, then Fair knows, here's another business that has very similar needs and they're not buying this product. So to be able to get your product quickly and easily in front of a bunch of people who are like-minded stores that could be selling your product, that's way more fascinating and interesting to me than trying to grab that customer on Amazon. Um, and so I've been enjoying that. The other thing that we're starting to spend a lot of time, there's some huge shifts in the industry, in e-commerce in general, on selling via um, you know they're basically they're basically ads that you do as a basic post on social media. So the whole social media marketing is a very interesting beast. So you have a product where you want to get in front of a bunch of people who are interested in your product. Well, that's great, but you don't want it to look like you're selling to that person. You want to look like you're showing something really cool. So what people usually did, the whole marketing, advertising kind of mechanism that you would do uh, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was all to sell a product. Now you don't want to go sell a product. What you want to just do is say, this is really cool. You should know about this product, and let them say, wow, this is so cool. I've got to buy it.
Yeah,
Once
and
that go ahead.
I was just going to say, social media really is e-commerce as well, and that's why I think what you're getting at, and to some degree, is this concept of influencers and micro influencers, and getting it to them for them to get to their group or their followers as well.
And not even so one of the things that we do is we find a bunch of I don't even want to call it we when we launched the Fog Hat cocktail smoker, we went to influencers, and we did a combination of non-paying and paying influencing influencers. Um, and uh, it 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 just blew up, and we went from zero to hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in sales just through utilizing influencer channels. But 6 months later, those influencers didn't have the same value that they had 6 months earlier. Nowadays, you can go and give some product to people to just do, basic videos showing how cool this is or what a great gift this is for their husband, and you use those little deals as those little videos as ads, and that resonates with people way more than if you produce a high quality uh, ad to promote, or to go to an influencer who does a real highbrow influencer thing. So the way to communicate now that we're enjoying and we find is interesting is just letting people tell the story for you without giving them a whole lot of information about what the story should be. And so if you can get 10 people to tell the story, there's enough similarities in each one of their stories that it communicates the product out. But one person might see the value of that different from how I might see it or you might see it, and they'll tell the stories somewhat different, and it might even rub me wrong. I might feel like that's not, I don't want you telling that story about my product. But some people see it that way and connect to it that way. Um, and so as I've stepped back from it all and just watched things happen, you start to realize that if you just let the public tell their story of your product, then it eventually gets around to everybody really, really quick. And you can move a ton of product very easily.
Yeah, it's the power of reviews with a little bit of even more subtlety, because it's not necessarily attached to a product listing. It's just conversation.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. Let's talk real quick as well about what I would consider most people's foundation or first step to into e-commerce, which is their website. So, did you have a website immediately when you started the business, or and what are you using for your website platform?
Well, so I happen to I was doing some work years ago for a company called Sierra Online. I don't know if you remember them, but they were a company back in the early 90s that was uh, they did CD-ROM games and CD-ROM stuff. And one of the products that they had was a web builder product. And so I had a website builder product, and it was basically a very primitive website building app. Um, and so I happened to have, been working on that product, um, and so I knew how to throw together websites pretty easy. So from the very beginning, yes, I think we launched our first website in 19. Well, for Thousand Oaks Barrel, our first website was 1999. Um, Actually, I think I was getting it together in 98, but it launched really in 99. And it was just using one of the Sierra Online website building apps. And then about 3 or 4 years later, the whole open source stuff started coming into play. And I started kind of getting into open source websites, and I tried any number of kind of pre-done sites, and it never worked for me because I needed to do things that those sites didn't do. So we have always had uh, home built platforms with a combination of um, off the shelf modules, and then I have a guy out here in Virginia who's a pretty good programmer who he builds other modules for us that so we have specific modules that we own that get built into our website. So um, so we've always had a website and we've been very focused on the website historically. Interestingly, there's an interesting shift away from people buying on people's websites and more to Amazon and some of the other areas. However, um, we are starting to see an interesting shift back because with social media, people see something, they click on the link, and it goes straight to your website. And now all of a sudden, companies don't have to give 40% of your sale to Amazon anymore. You can actually start to dominate and do better business on your own website if you utilize the media, social media channels correctly, and get in front of the right people. Then you're going back to your website and they're buying on the websites. What we're finding has been the new trend is rather than websites that are big websites with a lot of products, you want a fairly small website that has just a specific product or the specific product with some of the basic accessories with it. And so we tend to be running multiple websites for the different products that we have, and and then all of that goes to a single source where we're able to process the orders from. I think we might have 6 or 7 different websites, and we process the orders from a single source and then get all the orders out. Um, so yes, so the website component it kind of lost its flair for the last few years. I would say 22 through 24, but I think that in 2025, all of a sudden, companies should be focusing more on their own website rather than selling stuff on Amazon.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot involved in what you just said there, but I think the most important thing is optimizing multiple channels, having your own website, because that's always where your highest margins are going to be. You're going to make the most
Absolutely.
money there, so you can't neglect it. And we did see a big surge in aggregators too that were buying up Amazon stores, and they were turning off websites because they just wanted to focus on that one channel. And then we saw that industry take a huge hit in about the same in the timing that you're discussing. So yeah, that's very important. And then there's the discussion of having multiple websites for different products and optimizing them individually and marketing for them individually. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time to get into that. So as we start to wrap up here, Bryan, why don't you talk a little bit more about those websites that you have and how people can find your stuff and how they could reach out to you if that's an option.
So thousandoaksbarrel.com is our primary website, and it's number 1000 oaks and barrel.com. So you go to thousandoaksbarrel.com. All of our products are there, and then most of our big products, our fog hat cocktail smokers and singles bar, everything has its own website individually, and um, and so we tend to be doing a lot of both, just because you get people and there are still some people I'll call them old school who want to go to a website that has a lot of stuff and you look like a very big company. And then there's other people who are just looking for a Foghat cocktail smoker, they go there and they just buy the smoker and they're done, and they're not there to go shop per se. And so I think that if you could, I think you can divide the consumer into shoppers and purchasers. People who already know what they want and they just want to go buy it. And then you have the people who are shoppers. And how you market to those different people is very different. The shopper experience is somebody who's into whiskey gifts. The buyer experience is somebody who's already looking for a whiskey making kit, and here you go here, you can buy your whiskey making kits. So that's yeah. So if you go to thousandoaksbarrel.com, that you'll see our whole line of products.
All right, fantastic. All right, well, with that, I think we need to wrap up today's podcast. So, Bryan, thank you for sharing your experience with our listeners, and thanks to everyone for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Focal Insights Podcast. If you like this episode, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can be alerted of new episodes. See you next time.